Hi guys, welcome to another Synth Secrets on Meld, the new bi-timbral synth available in Live 12. I've been using Meld a lot lately and found myself quite unexpectedly making metal-inspired riffs. I'll be honest, this riff is a bit cheesy. It's got shades of Yngwie Malmsteen,
and I have dubbed it Arpeggios from Hell.
Dimebag Darrell,
Diamond and Phil have joined me on.
Maybe even a bit of Steve Vai.
And he goes, stop, lesson over.
But it does somewhat show some of the awesome modulation capabilities in Meld, and in particular, the scale awareness. If you're like me, you may find you get a bit lost with the features and the control. So I'm going to work through how I got the sound, and hopefully it will give you some pointers when you're using it. Let's go. To begin with, start a new track and drag Meld onto it. Now program a MIDI pattern. We're programming a MIDI pattern in C minor, and we've set the scale to C In Sen. You can change lots of different scale settings here, and they'll all come into their own later. But for the purposes of what we're doing, we found that this In Sen sounds really, really interesting. Now head to Meld, and we suggest that you work with it in stages. So we turned off part A and we only wanted to work with part B. Let's hear how it sounds. You can't really hear it right now. So let's get going. Let's change basic shapes to swarm square. And if you have this notification afterwards, it means it will work with scale awareness, which we just toggled on. Now let's change the motion to 7 and the spacing to around 20. Now let's change it from poly to mono and take it off legato. Go to settings, hit GLISS, and let's make this around 40. 48 should do it. Let's start with the modulation by clicking on the triangle here and opening it on the big screen so we can see what we're doing. Head for your LFO 1 and let's modulate the pitch quant. The pitch quant is this setting here. You can hear the scale awareness doing its thing there. So we've got like an arpeggiated sound very quickly. Let's change the LFO settings. So click on part B and the LFOs. Let's change the basic shape to ramp. Let's change the rate to 1. Let's drag some shape, 48 or something around there. Let's add in some slope. And I really like this offset. If you see what you can see what it does on the waveform. Already we've got a good sounding part, but there's a lot more that we can do with it. Let's make use of the LFO FX. So we're going to head to LFO FX and we're going to dial in 100 on the oscillator macro 1. So that's this part of the synth modulating this part. But we can also affect the shapes of these LFOs. So if you click on here, let's change this one to SNH. Let's dial in 96 all the way, nearly. And let's take this one, let's make it Skew Unipolar, and 62. You should be able to hear what it's doing there. It's already quite tight with the song. Now let's change the LFO 2. Let's bring it to 8. And let's change the shape to random SNH. Now let's head to our envelope. Let's remove the release. We want it to stop. And because we're adding some modulation, let's just try and increase the decay on the modulation. Around 800 should do it. Now let's look at the filter, and its default setting is set on the SVF. Let's make it to the LP crunched. Let's put it down halfway. And let's dial in lots of Q and lots of drive. Since we dialed back the frequency, we've lost a lot of the top end, so we're going to use the attack on the envelope to modulate the filter opening. see what it sounds like up an octave. That's cool. Here we could also add in some spread. Let's add in a stack. Add plenty of drive. The ending doesn't sound tight to us. We're going to work on that in a second. Let's also change the spread here. Let's go. Instead of detuning down, it detunes up. Now we're going to use the cross modulation section. We're going to use our LFO2 and we're going to assign it to the LFO1 macro. Let's bring it down. So let's head to the LFO1 of A. Let's mess with the shape a little bit. The basic shape, let's change it to Wonder. Let's change the rate to 2. Let's dial in some morph and some step. Let's change this to slew up. Let's dial in a little bit. We can leave the fade in as it is. Let's bring it up a little bit. Around halfway. Now let's change, keep it on sine, but let's also put that on 8. Too much detune going on. It's much tighter now ever since we've got that LFO2 working, especially at the end. Let's hear it to the end of the pattern. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. The next thing we want to do is we're going to automate some things. So we're going to pause it and speed this bit up because there's quite a lot of automation to go in to get the effect that we want. Hope you enjoyed that brief interlude. With our automation in place, let me show you what we did. We automated the rate of the LFO in part B, so you can see it moving here. So it would go down on the first note. Now it's at 1. Then it would go down. That's how you get that nice descending line there, using the scale to your advantage. And the other thing we automated on part B was the slope part of LFO1. If you did it up, it's kind of cool as well. I mean, you could do it here, for example. I love Meld. Okay, so we're pretty happy with part B. Now let's add in part A. You can get some extra depth in here, but I also like some of these sounds that you got towards the bottom, like the noise loop. Dial in a bit of fade, bit of rate. Let's bring down some of the filter. can maybe pan that one slightly to the right. Now let's bring in our pad that we made in Pigment. Now we're going to add in Raw, which is the new distortion device. The first thing we want to do is change the routing to multiband to give us 3 separate frequency bands. You can also open this up, head to the high, dial in plenty of them out, plenty of bias. Let's also add in a dotted delay. Bring the tone up. It's getting a bit loud. Pull it down. We also want to use some of the modulation features in here, so grab the LFO 2 and let's dial it in on the bias for the high frequency band. You can repeat that on both other frequency bands too. Let's do it on the bottom one. Add in a bit of an up. You could smooth out your LFO 2 pattern here. Starting a lot more drive. Let's increase the volume there. So you see how this sounds up an octave? Now let's add in a reverb. Bring the dry wet down, size down. Just wondering how the LFO 2 could work on the tone frequency. Not doing a great deal there. Lastly, maybe just a tad of EQ. We're using EQ8. Bit more delay. Bring it down a little bit. I hate having to do this in my headphones. I hate mixing like this. Pan it a little bit. Bring up the pad. Sounding okay. Let's go back to our Meld. See what it sounds like up the octave. We're pretty happy with our sound, and that extra addition of raw really helps take Meld to that next level. What we're just going to say before we wrap it up is you can now mess around with the scale if you like. we found that we haven't fully mastered what the scales will do. I mean, we understand the scales, but we just seem to have a struggling to use them and know exactly where they're going to go. So if I was to keep it on solo for a second, just do it in minor pentatonic. We'll probably hear more of a difference at the end. Got a sort of Van Halen feel about that one. Let's see what it sounds like. Yeah, so to go back to In Sen, you get the idea is that the different scales can really, well, for us at least, they can really change the way that the LFO is modulating the scale, and it kind of just throws your tune out a little bit. But it's really worth, once you've got it, at least going back and seeing, could another scale sound a bit better? Like I said, we didn't just make this pattern and then hit In Sen and it was, you know, made a sound. It was a lot of trial and error, and I think that's the beauty of it. A lot of trial and error, and we spent quite a bit of time trying to understand what works well with what things, and yeah, just basically hope that's kind of helpful. It's not the sound we would normally make, but it's kind of interesting to our ears, and if we were to take this further, we would probably automate part A to come on at a certain time and automate part B to turn off at other time, and we would definitely be automating the rates of the LFOs so that we can have different patterns in different parts of the song. I mean, even if you just had an intro, for example, let me just pull out one more across. Oops. And then let's leave that a second on solo. You could maybe see what it's like if you just change this, and especially change this. Okay, so we've made some changes. It sounds cool to us. Let's hear how it sounds on the track. Take up solo. Hope you found all of that helpful and a little bit insightful on how to use Meld. If you have any questions about Meld or Raw, or indeed Live 12, just drop a comment below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.